We have arrived at the popular Bahrain International Circuit in Sakhir for the running of the Bahrain Grand Prix, the first time the Grand Prix has been held towards the back end of the season. Coming into this week, two drivers have been in the news this week. The first team news of the day comes from Renault, as after so much speculation, they have announced that 2020 DTM champion and three-time race winner Romain Quarg will be joining the team in 2022. Romain has had an amazing return to the top class, with him pretty much replicating the pace he had when he was last in the top class. He currently lies 14th in the Drivers' Championship, tied on points with former teammate Roland Motrin, and his current team Alfa Romeo lie 9th in the Constructors, 1 point behind AlphaTauri. Despite having a successful return to the top class, a lot of people feel he should have more points to his name due to how inconsistent Alfa Romeo have been this season, given the fact that they have arguably had the best car outside the top 6 threshold, with them in the last few races missing out on a lot of championship points due to the reliability of the Alfa Romeo and in some occasions mistakes from the drivers. Romain will be relieved to be joining Renault in 2022, given the frustration at Alfa Romeo and the fact that he literally fought for Renault in 2021, and he will be looking to be challenging for wins again and hopefully challenging for the title if Renault sort out their issues. He will replace Evan Byrne, who will be returning to Red Bull next season after a frustrating few seasons with Renault, and he will partner alongside Jesus Perinen, who was the man who denied Romain the opportunity to be at Renault for this season. This does unfortunately mean for Julius Anderson it's bad news for him, as with him missing out on both Renault and Lamborghini, and with him looking likely to leave Aston Martin at the end of the season, it is now highly likely that Julius will be out of a drive again for 2022, but only time will tell. The final team news of the day comes from Alfa Romeo, as a result of Romain Quarg leaving the team at the end of the season, they have announced that 2019 Formula E champion and current Haas driver Amelia Wilson will be joining the team in her final season before her sabbatical. Amelia has had a brilliant second half of the season after a tricky first half of 2021. She currently lies 20th in the Drivers' Championship, 3 points behind David Kupak, and her current team Haas lie 10th in the Constructors, 2 points behind her future team Alfa Romeo. Amelia has had issues adapting to the Haas at the start of the season, but by the time the second half of the season came around, she managed to show the pace that she was able to show last season when she was at Manor. Her highest point this season came at the last race at Mexico, where she managed to finish 6th after coming off the back of an amazing qualifying session where she qualified 9th. Amelia will be happy to know that she will be on the grid next season with Alfa Romeo, and she'll be hoping to have a brilliant final season before she heads off on her 2-season sabbatical from the OC. She will replace Romain Quarg, who as mentioned earlier will be leaving Alfa Romeo at the end of the season to join Renault. The only question remaining at Alfa Romeo is who will be Amelia Wilson's teammate, with Andre Verderi also expected to leave the team at the end of the season as a result of putting Aston Martin as his first choice, which is behind Alfa Romeo in the pick order. It is more than likely that Amelia will end up with a rookie teammate in 2022, with Benz Valdinga being the favourite for that second seat, whilst Alexander Arnold and Ruslan Proxy, providing they get good results at Indianapolis, could be there to capitalise if Benz doesn't do enough to get the seat. It will be fascinating to see who Alfa Romeo end up choosing. And that is it for this week's edition of the GP4 OC News. The penultimate team news of the season will break at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix next week, who will be announced due to practice next Tuesday at the Yas Marina circuit in the United Arab Emirates. Hello everybody and welcome to round 19 of the 2021 GP4 Offline Championship. We are here at the Bahrain International Circuit in Sakhir for, as mentioned, round 19 of the season. The first ever time this Grand Prix has been held towards the back end of the season. We're so used to it being towards the beginning of the season, there's a bit of a change and it's towards the back end, and the same will be said for next season. I'm JW97 and I'm joined today by F2 commentator Robert Ionescu.
Hello, I'm really sorry about that. Something urgent came up. I'll be right back in 5 minutes.
Okay, well, that's his introduction. Probably one of the best introductions you're going to hear. But yes, we are here in Bahrain for the Bahrain Grand Prix and the third to last race of the season. And coming into this week, of course, we obviously just got the news right now, and we'll obviously get Rob's reaction very soon once he has to attend what he needs to do. But of course, for anybody who's just missed the team news, two major announcements and two driver transfers as well. Roman Quarg is going to Renault next season to partner alongside Jesus Perinen, and Amelia Wilson will be heading off to Alfa Romeo for next season as well, for what will be her final season before her 2-season sabbatical. She will be joining Alfa Romeo after what had been a pretty good last few races for her in the last few races. And speaking of which, she's making her way out onto the track now then. And it has been a while, of course, since we see these cars at Bahrain, of course. You have to rewind back to the beginning of the season when we were last here, of course, doing pre-season testing. Whether this will remain as a pre-season testing venue for next season, though, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, Yuri has said in the past that he has plans to maybe have different venues host the pre-season test for future seasons. Whether that will be the case in 2022, we'll have to wait and see, of course. Of course, you'll have to wait a very long time for 2022, of course, because of the new 3-week hiatus that we have for the off season. Of course, it does clash with the 2-week Christmas break. With the 2-week Christmas break that we have as well. So in total, you get a 5-week break in between the 2021 and 2022 seasons before preseason testing gets going on the first full week of January. So exciting stuff there then, as we now look at Felix Sontag now then, who's coming out onto the racetrack, as a few more cars making their way out onto the track as well. So it does mean now, as a result of those news that we just got earlier on, it does mean now there's only 4 more seats left to fill out. The 2 seats, of course, at Aston Martin, the remaining seat at Haas, and of course the remaining seat at what's the other one? Alfa Romeo, of course. Obviously, because we're expecting not just Quarg, but we're also expecting Andre Federi to leave the team at the end of the season due to the fact he's put another team down as his number 1 choice, which is, of course, behind Alfa Romeo in the pick order. That team, of course, being the car that's actually in front of him on track, the Aston Martin. So, whether Federi will end up getting that seat or not is another question, as he now makes his way down towards the hairpin as he'll be preparing to start his first lap of practice. The tyres we're using today here at Bahrain is the medium tyres. It has been a while since we've seen the yellow-walled medium tyres. I'm trying to remember the last time we actually had the medium tyres. In fact, I think I'm going to actually go onto the Wikipedia page to find out. So let me just quickly check, because it has been a while since we've used the yellow-walled tyres. And the last time we used them was back at the Hungarian Grand Prix. So 8 races ago was the last time we used these compound of tyres. So should be interesting to see how these compounds fare around here, of course. Usually because it's the middle of the road, it makes it hard to predict whether the 1-stop, 2-stop or even the 3-stop is the best way to go. And especially around here at Bahrain, it could be very, very interesting indeed. I mean, in real life it's known as a bit of a tyre killer, but whether that's going to be the case in the OC, it will remain to be seen. As the 2 McLarens just come out of the double left-hander there then, as is now then making his way towards the end of the...
Back, what did I miss?
Not much, nobody's set a time yet, but Robbie's officially back, so I might as well get your reaction to the news, of course. First of all, Roman Quarg on his way to Renault for next season. You just put in the stream chat, you believed it was never really in doubt.
I mean, Roman has been absolutely amazing this season. I don't think they really are. It was only a matter of time. I'm just surprised it was announced so late. But yeah, he's been doing incredibly well, and I think it's very much deserved.
Yes, indeed. And it'll be interesting to see how he does at Renault next season, especially alongside Jesus Perinen, the same man who actually denied him the chance to be at Renault for this season. So it'd be interesting to see.
I think he's forgiven him for that now.
Probably, yes, now that he's finally made it to Renault. But it does kind of mean, hold that thought, because Patel has made an error going through the double left-hander there. A recent new resident to South Carolina recently, as he's just made a mistake going through into the double left-hander there, pushing a little bit too hard there, it's fair to say, and carrying a little bit too much speed. As I was saying, it could potentially be bad news for Julius Anderson now, Rob, because both Renault and Lamborghini have confirmed their drivers, and obviously he's expected to leave Aston Martin. I think it's safe to say now he's probably going to be out of a drive unless something happens during the off-season, which brings him back into the series.
I don't mean to be negative, but sadly so it seems.
Maybe a trip back to DTM, or maybe even to another series. I mean, obviously we know that another series is gaining some popularity in the OC, of course, that being World Champ Car. Maybe he might fancy a trip over to that series to see if he can do a very good job. Speaking of Anderson, he goes to 4th in this session so far, with Roke currently at the top. Of course, the other news, of course, being that Amelia Wilson will be moving to Alfa Romeo next season. And obviously, she had a brilliant race last time out in Mexico. You could say, in a way, that race definitely guaranteed her the Alfa Romeo seat for next season. And hopefully, she'll be hoping to end her final season before a 2-season sabbatical on a high, Rob.
Yeah, I think so too. She's had a shaky start to the season, but has constantly been improving, and that performance in Mexico from her was pretty amazing.
It was indeed. Obviously qualified 9th and ended up finishing in 6th place, really. Apart from a little bit of contact she had early on in the race, she basically kept out of trouble, really, and brought the car home to score some brilliant championship points, which in turn leapfrogged Haas ahead of Williams in the Constructors' Championship, and they only themselves find themselves around 3 points behind Alfa Romeo, the team that Amelia was going to. It's safe to say, despite the car they've had, they've definitely underperformed this season, and obviously at the last race in Mexico, Rob, it was just another case of that.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Yes, and of course Alfa Romeo down in 9th place in the Constructors' Championship as a direct result of that, as we see Jake Galloway getting by on Jamie Griffiths going through into the final turn there. As meanwhile, Franco Gamba, the championship leader, currently in 11th place in this session. We might as well talk about a little bit about the last race over at Mexico, of course. We had rainy conditions for that race, and, well, a lot of drama, because it was even clipped on the Discord server that, well, both the championship contenders were in the wars, Rob, really, because, well, they were both taken out of the race, really, at exactly the same time. Of course, Franco got taken out by Andre Vaderi, and Carr, around about the same time, suffered a mechanical failure.
The biggest shock is that those two events were completely unrelated to each other. Like, how can it be that both championship contenders DNF at the exact same time? It's something out of a Hollywood movie script, but nevertheless, it was a big shocker. And I think both of them are trying to make up for it by getting as much points as they can this week here in Bahrain. Because we are nearing crunch time, and there's no room for errors anymore.
Definitely isn't, and really, it is crunch time at this point of the championship, as you rightly said there, as we see Lopez locking up into the first corner there, as he's currently down in 12th place so far in this session, with teammate Carr up in 6th position. But of course, over in Mexico last time out, it was another good weekend for Ferrari. A 1-2 finish, and Chris Chatfield getting his 3rd win out of 4 races. Really on form towards the end of the season is Chris Chatfield, and a 1-2 finish, which brings them closer to Renault in the Constructors' Championship. Now, I said last time out at Mexico, when I was commentating, that Ferrari had leapfrogged ahead of Renault. Well, that was a mistake on my end. I did a little miscalculation in my head. They're actually still behind Renault, but the gap is now just 5 points between them. So I said, obviously, a few races ago that it was going to be a bit of a reach for Ferrari to get 3rd place. Now that you think of it, with 3 races to go, it might be possible for them to get 3rd place.
They've certainly turned things around, haven't they? And knowing just how unreliable their Renault is, I think Renault are definitely feeling a little bit of pressure right now.
Indeed so, and especially if Ferrari put on another strong performance here in Bahrain, they could indeed leap above Renault in the Constructors' Championship. It's definitely one to keep an eye on for tomorrow's race, that is for sure.
Yeah, well said.
Indeed, as of course, also at that race in Mexico, of course, it was obviously a race of attrition, really, it's fair to say, whether it was down to a couple of crashes or even some mechanical failures that happened during the race. But some good luck for Lamborghini last time out at Mexico, because Rahul Patel was able to salvage a podium. Now, of course, we thought... Obviously, he took a little bit of a gamble, let's not forget, because the conditions were getting worse towards the end of the race. He tried to stick it out on the normal wet tyre, but in the end, afterwards, he realised that he was going to struggle and fall back anyway, so he decided to abandon that attempt and went on the extreme wets as a result. So, but either way, Lamborghini getting a podium, and but they're still behind McLaren in the Constructors' Championship, who of course managed to leapfrog them at the United States Grand Prix.
Well, Lamborghini are a new team, so just the fact they've made this far is incredibly impressive of them, I'm gonna be honest with you.
Indeed, and you would think that things will only get better for the seasons to come, and that's what both Rahul and Laura will be hoping to, especially Laura Chung, who once again suffered from some bad luck at Mexico. Another mechanical failure took her out of the race. She really has not had any luck in these last few races, it's fair to say.
Yeah, unfortunately not, and should be hoping to put all that behind her and concentrate on a good finish here.
And obviously she'll be hoping to do well here at Bahrain. Of course, this is the place where she actually took her first ever pole in the top class, if I'm not mistaken, back in 2019. So she does have some good history here, but wasn't able to convert it into a win that day. She had to wait a couple of more races before she could get her first ever victory in the top class. As we look at Kirishima De Rosa now, then, who's currently behind Amelia Wilson, and currently De Rosa finding himself in third position. And of course, it has reminded me of well, because we do have 2 grid penalties to keep an eye on going into this race as well, because of course De Rosa has a 10-place grid penalty for causing an accident at the first corner, which involved not just Roland Motrin but the 2 Mercedeses, who both got held up in the process of all of that. And also having a grid penalty is Daniel Fraser. Fraser has got a 5-place grid penalty, and of course last time out he obviously got that grid penalty for causing a crash with Jamie Griffiths going into the stadium section. And we've talked about how much he was under pressure to perform, and well, that accident with Griffiths is definitely not going to help his cause if he wants to get retained, Rob.
Yeah, things were looking good for Fraser early on, but recently he's just been having a very poor run of form, and that could really put him in danger.
Yes, indeed. And as mentioned, that accident, which has given him the 5-place grid penalty for this race, is not going to help. Of course, 2 grid penalties for you to keep in mind there. Of course, we'll remind people when we get to the qualifying session as well, when we get there. So we look at
both are 10 places, right?
One of them is 10 places, the other one is 5 places. De Rosa's the one with the 10-place grid penalty because it was a multi-car incident, and the other one, and Fraser, was a 5-place grid penalty because he, well, it was basically his own doing, really, the incident he caused, which meant that Griffiths was essentially a passenger. So that's that. Obviously, 2 penalties to keep an eye on during qualifying. We were just briefly looking at Miklos Gal there, and it was a pretty good, Mexican Grand Prix for AlphaTauri. A double points finish for the first time this season for the team, 9th and 10th for both of the drivers. I mean, Gals, you could say, was arguably luck because of what happened to Felix Sontag towards the back end of the race. He suffered a mechanical failure which cost him any chance of points at Mexico, but overall, pretty good day for them, and it meant that they leapfrogged Alfa Romeo in the Constructors to go up into 8th in the championship at the moment by 1 point. Now, given the car they've got, Rob, it's a pretty good effort for them.
Well, you gotta make your luck in motorsport, and they're doing a very impressive job, I have to tell you.
Yes, indeed, and that's obviously something that that AlphaTauri will be hoping to hold on to 8th place, because for Kupak and Gal, they said it will be a massive achievement considering the car they've got. They were able to finish in 8th place in the Constructors. Whether they'll be able to do that or not, we will have to wait and see. And of course, along with that, as well, just looking around the races, of course, Perinen having another strong race at Mexico, finishing in 4th place, not able to get the podium like he did in the previous 3 races, but he's had some strong run of races recently as Perinen. But again, we keep mentioning it, still yet to get that elusive first win that a lot of people were expecting him to get this season.
It'll come soon enough, and if not this season, definitely in the near future.
Yes, indeed, and of course you could and obviously he will have a new teammate, as we know now, for next season in the form of Romain Quayle, because of the fact that Evan Byrne is of course moving back to Red Bull next season, and currently he's second at the moment, is Byrne, in this session, behind his future teammate, or former teammate if you're talking about the last 4 races of 2006, but soon will be his future teammate again, George Roque, who's currently at the top by 4 tenths of a second, a 1 minute 29.301. And might as well answer a question that Mago's put in the stream chat. He's put, which race are you looking forward to next season on the calendar? Well, it's a very good question because, of course, we've got 2 new races on the calendar next season. Both of them I'm looking forward to massively. And but if I had to think about which race I'm looking forward to the most out of those 2, I think I would say Misano, given the races that they've had in the past with DTM.
Well, I was looking forward to Brazil again, but unfortunately that's not gonna happen, so I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see what Misano can produce.
And definitely what Balcarce can produce next season when it's the penultimate race of the season. Who knows? Maybe the championship could get decided at the new track next season. It will be interesting to see as we ride on board with Amelia Wilson, currently down in 19th at the moment behind her teammate Daniel Fraser. Fraser, of course, doing everything he can to try and save his top-class career as best as he can. As we look back at Roku's actually coming back to the pits this time by. As of course, coming into this race, of course, the gap between Gamba and Carr still 17 points as a result of both of them failing to score last time out at Mexico, and it does mean that that Gamba can't win the title this week. Of course, I mean, if he had had a very good race at Mexico, then he could have had a shot at trying to win the title here at Bahrain. But of course, because of what happened at the last race in Mexico, he's probably going to have to wait until at least another race to get his first shot at winning the title. Carl, of course, will be trying to do whatever he can to try and get his first world title, as it's looking highly likely that it will be between those two for the championship. As although having said that, you never know. Perinin could cause a surprise towards the end of the season. However, given the gap between him and Carr, which is around 32 points, Perinin is going to need a little bit of an ask if he wants to be a bit of an outsider in this championship.
It's not impossible though, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Gamba and Ka both DNF for the last race. If they keep having bad luck, Burnett might just somehow be able to jump into it. If he still has a mathematical shot, then it's foolish for us to rule him out.
Indeed so. Of course, going into this race, only because Red Bull had a double retirement last time out in Mexico, only Mercedes out of the two of them was able to score points, although it was only 6 points in the form of Franco Lopez, who had a little bit of a very dramatic race over in Mexico last time out. The gap now between Mercedes and Red Bull going into this race is 51 points, if my maths are correct there. Yes, it is. 51 points is the gap between them.
So they can't take the title, but they're gonna need to outscore Mercedes by a huge amount. So it's probably not going to happen.
In fact, let me just quickly calculate that before we move on. Obviously, the gap is 51 points. I mean, the maximum a team can get is, of course, 44 points per weekend. So, yeah, they can win it this weekend, can Red Bull. But as you said, they are going to need quite a lot of luck. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see if they are able to do that, Red Bull. But I think it's going to be a bit of an.
I don't think they need to hurry. They know they're the number one. They know they're the favorites for it. Only a matter of time. It doesn't really matter if they get a big failure for Laura Chung, as I was trying to say. But yeah, the engine has gone dramatically there, and puff of smoke.
That's her session done with, and we were talking about how much bad luck she's had this season. Well, that's definitely not going to help her any further. She's just had a blown engine, and that will be her session done with because of the spare car ban. She really has not had any luck, has she, as poor Laura Chung. Ever since she got announced to be retained by Lamborghini for 2022, it just seems like things have just gone downhill for her, and obviously she's trying her best she's obviously trying to rectify that if she can. I mean, it looked like the marshal was waiting for the tyre to basically disappear before he could hoist Chung over the barriers, and it looks like he's doing a very poor job in hoisting Chung's car over the barriers. She's not quite made it back to the garage just yet. I think she might be now. Is she back in the garage yet? No, not yet. I don't think. I think it's only Byrne who's in it. There's Chung now. So the spare car ban should get implemented right now. And I made a little bit of a mistake. It's actually 49 points between Mercedes and Red Bull, not 51 points. But still, they do have a slim chance of winning the Constructors' Championship this week here in Bahrain.
So they need to outscore them by what? 49 points. It's probably not going to happen, but it could. As I was saying, for Red Bull, before Chung's engine failure interrupted me, it doesn't really matter for Red Bull if they win it at the third to last race or second to last race. They will probably win it, as Cupa goes very off track there. They will probably win it, and it's only a matter of time for Red Bull before they can clinch that Constructors' Championship.
They basically need to outscore them, if my maths are correct. They need to outscore them. Hang on, but 969 something. I think by about 39 points they need to outscore them by 39 or 40 points to wrap up the constructors' title. Although
not gonna happen.
That's going to be a bit of an ask, I think. So I
They're
think
gonna need to win the race in the first place. So if you don't see Red Bull at that top spot of the podium, then just know Mercedes still have a barrel chance.
yes, and but as you said, it's going to be a bit of an ask for Red Bull to try and win the constructors this week, and now we come down the straight, and Sontag crosses the line. He's currently down in where is he? He's currently 16th at the moment, but not able to improve on that lap. His car got held up by Kirishima DeRosa there going into the first corner. Garbo improves meanwhile, but only into 12th position, so he's not having the best of sessions at the moment. Whilst we were speaking, Patel in the other Lamborghini, the only remaining Lamborghini in this session, has gone up into second place. He's got in front of Evan Byrne meanwhile, 3 tenths off of George Roque, and obviously both Roque and Patel staying at their respective teams for next season. Roque staying at Red Bull and Patel staying at Lamborghini. Of course, there was a little bit of a chance if Roque could have been booted out of Red Bull in favour of either Patel or Perinen if they missed out on the number 1 choice.
Or maybe Q-Park had he gone for Red Bull.
Perhaps, but he didn't. And but obviously in the end, Perinen and Patel ended up getting retained by their respective teams, which meant that Roque was basically a footing to be Byrne's teammate again for 2022. So should be interesting to see. Especially, I can't wait to see what Byrne can do in that car next season. And given how strong Red Bull have been this season, he should have a. You would imagine that Byrne should have a chance of trying to go for the title next season, but you never know, of course, because you never know if the bad luck that he's had at Renault might follow him.
Well, Byrne is a very experienced driver, and even though he's driven a lot of races, he hasn't really seemed to get bad. He's still very competitive, and he can pull off the odd great result, and yeah, he's got good form. I mean, he can find good form, sorry. And he can definitely be a championship contender if that Red Bull is still up there and those are the fastest cars.
Yes, indeed, and be interested to see how Renault do without him as well, especially with Perinen and Quarg as their driver lineup. And so Sontag now then making his way through into the right-hander now then, as Sontag will make his way towards the S's as he's 5 tenths down in at the first sector and 1 tenth down on his personal best. Maybe some of that had got to do with the fact that the AlphaTauri may have overtaken him there, and maybe if that AlphaTauri had not overtaken him, maybe he could have been up on his personal best, but who knows really. With just under 19 minutes to go in this practice session, this is what the leaderboard currently looks like then. Roque at the top, Patel in second, Byrne in third with DeRosa in fourth, Anderson is in fifth with Quarg in sixth, Carr in seventh, Perinen in eighth, followed by Chatfield in ninth, then Mottram in 10th, Willows 11th, Garber all the way down in 12th at the moment with Chung in 13th. Of course, this session is finished because of the engine failure she's just had. Verderi in 14th, sorry, Lopez down in 15th, Sontag 16th, Q-Park in 17th with Galloway all the way down in 18th with Fraser 19th, Wilson 20th, Gal 21st, and Griffiths currently in 22nd position. As Chatfield, meanwhile, has got, I think that's Miklos Gal trying to get by him. Of course, Bahrain is known for being a power track, so maybe the AlphaTauri could do well given the Honda engine that's in the back of the car. And so
the big question is, do AlphaTauri have that grip in the high-speed corners? Because they've really been struggling for downforce so far this season. And yeah, it is a power track, but the most important thing at Bahrain is traction. Those acceleration zones are can be where lots of time is gained and lost.
Absolutely, and of course, the only really saving grace that AlphaTauri have had is the powerful Honda engine that's in the back. I mean, I know that Garber said when he was doing commentary for practice in qualifying last week that it's not that powerful, but I think I beg to differ on that one, if I'm being totally honest, but there we are. And so Sontag now then making his way out of the hairpin as we have just under 17.5 minutes to go. As Chatfield still having trouble with Gal, who overtook him earlier. Meanwhile, speaking of Ferraris, Galloway, who was down in 18th earlier on, has gone up into 4th place with his lap time. Slots in just behind his former teammate Evan Byrne as Sontag just comes out of the support pit straight there. And I guess it's safe to say for a lot of people, Rob, on the topic of this circuit, I think some people find it a little bit strange that this race is being hosted towards the back end of the season. Obviously, Yuri did it to try and have a back-to-back with this and Abu Dhabi, of course. But still, it's a little bit strange.
Why not just move Abu Dhabi to the start of the season? That would be more entertaining.
Oh, either way, I mean, it's still a bit strange to see it towards the back in the season. I mean, unless you
Yeah.
watched the 2020 Formula One season, then it wouldn't have been that strange.
Well,
But
they had a certain reason behind that, so we're not going to get into it.
yeah, let's not get into it. But yeah, still strange indeed. But I do like the idea of it being towards the back end of the season. I mean, either wherever you put it, it normally throws a good race anyway. Does Bahrain? So it doesn't really matter where you put it. As I've just said that for about the umpteenth time. But anyway,
Well, my driver has never. My driver absolutely hates Bahrain, and Bahrain absolutely hates my driver. 2010, I finished 10th or 9th or something back when we had points for top 8. 2011, DNF. 2012, DNF. 2013, DNF. 2014, DNF. 2015, DNF. 2016, DNF. And that was my last race in Bahrain in the top class. So yeah, for me, this track has been an absolute hellhole of a nightmare.
indeed, as Sontag just making his. Anyway, as now come out of the double left-hander as Franco Gamba, meanwhile, has come back out onto the track, currently down in 13th. We'll be interested to see if he can get anywhere near George Roke's time by the end of the session, of course. His main rival, Armar Carr, currently up in 8th place. Of course, practice doesn't really matter, of course, but just thought it would be something to note about as Gamba now makes his way towards the S's now then. And, of course, it's basically the race for who's going to get the first title, because we know now, of course, we knew this about a couple of races ago, that Franco Lopez was officially out of the title fight, which will mean that we will be having a brand new champion at the end of the season, and not a triple champion in the form of Franco Lopez. And of course, the top 6 in the Drivers' Championship have never won the championship before, so bit of an interesting fact there. So I think
you got to start somewhere.
Well, yeah, absolutely, and obviously coming into this race, for anybody who is curious, of course, in terms of who's still technically in with a mathematical shout of the championship, of course, there are 88 points left up for grabs still, so you just need to, at the moment, as we speak right now, I think it's actually the top 4 who are technically still in the title fight, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I'll quickly double check on my calculator just to be sure that I'm correct on that. But
sorry, where?
I'm talking about the championship. I'm just talking about who's technically still in the championship
at
the moment. There is still, at the moment, as mentioned, there is still a total of 88 points available, of course, because you need to include, of course, the fastest laps for the races. And so, yes, it is the top 4 who are still mathematically in it, although I do think that Galloway
78?
Is it 78?
78, yeah, 26 times 3.
78, sorry. Yeah, so at the moment, in fact, no then. So it's the top 3 who are only mathematically still in it. So that does guarantee us we will be having a new crowned champion, but it's just who will it be? Gamba, Carr, or Perinin? I think it's highly likely, though, that it is between Gamba and Carr, but yeah, it will be interesting to see who's going to be the first to get to their first title, really.
Yeah, indeed. Ka has been trying for so many times and always came up short. Gamba, this is his first proper title fight, and his last one, as a matter of fact, as well.
Yes, indeed.
So, will it be the tenacious one, or will it be the one trying to make a big, lasting impression? Literally lasting impression, given it'll be his last season in the top class.
Yeah, trying to do what Florian Volker did back in 2019, which is walk away with the title. Although at the time we didn't know he was going to be retiring back in 2018. That one came out of the blue, really. And to answer Michael's question, yes, it is the outer layout that the Formula E drivers are using in 2 weeks' time for the finale. The one that George Russell did that guest drive for Mercedes in. So, yes, so anyway. As back to the action, Anderson currently in 6th place. I mean, obviously, we know now that he's not going to be at either Renault or Lamborghini for next season, and of course, he's probably not going to be at Aston Martin next season unless something happens during the off season, and he's probably highly likely to be out of a drive in 2022 once again. Really, I mean, it seems to be a little bit of a curse, really, whenever he tries to go for Renault. It always seems to bite him back, really, and you can make the argument that maybe he still hasn't learned his lesson from trying to go to Renault, but he felt confident.
Maybe he hasn't gotten the message yet.
Who knows, really? But anyway, as
I think he might have had a very good chance to be retained at Aston, but went for a very risky sign-up. And unfortunately, this is a sort of thing that happens when you go for risky sign-ups.
yes, indeed. I mean, of course, we know that there is some consideration about altering the pick order rules for next season. I think more details will get thrown out when we get to the discussion streeters. Meanwhile, Amar Khan in the Mercedes goes up into 3rd position. He's now 3/10 off of George Rowe. Garmer's still down in 13th.
Unrelated question, Joe, but you available for F2 commentary as well?
Should be, but we'll see.
All right.
Anyway, as back to the action. Of course, there are 2 cars in the garage, but as mentioned, it's technically 1 because of Chung's engine failure earlier on. Griffiths, meanwhile, has improved, but
I think she's gone and had an ice cream. I was gonna say she's gonna had a drink, but you can't drink in Bahrain, can you? So she's just gonna get an ice cream like Kimmy, as De Rosa makes an overtake on that Williams.
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe grab a pint of rose water, I guess. But anyway, as Griffiths is 1.8 seconds off, so that's how much the pack is separated. As De Rosa and Sontag are too busy switching places during this session, while they've got one of the Renaults right behind and one of the McLarens as well. Sontag is actually coming into the pits this lap, so De Rosa says, "Oh, the other Lamborghini is now at the blow up." So both Lamborghinis are in the walls, really. So clearly, the Lamborghini's struggling with temperatures around here in Bahrain.
It shouldn't even be that hot given that we're at nighttime, but nevertheless, the Bahraini conditions a little bit too much to handle for the Lambo right now.
Indeed, and Patel's session has now come to an end, so a double disaster really for Lamborghini, and both of them out of the session, so they're going to need 2 fresh engines really for qualifying. And well, Patel was actually up in 2nd place when the engine blew up, but it looks like it looks like he's going to stay there unless anybody else improves, which they could do because we've still just got under 10 minutes to go in this practice session before we get on to qualifying for the Bahrain Grand Prix. As Sontag just makes his way down at the support pit straight before making his way into the medium speed left-hander now then, as we have seen some drivers make mistakes at that corner in the past. Whether we will see that this season is another thing, as Perinin just after that corner nearly made a bit of a moment coming out of that right-hander there, clipping a bit too much of the curb, and finds himself currently in this session in a McLaren sandwich. I mean, one of the McLarens is too busy trying to pass Sontag, but I'm pretty sure Kira will be alerted that Felix is coming into the pits this time by, so he doesn't need to worry about him for too long. So unless he gets a pit call on the top of his death panel at the end of this lap, he should be able to get a clean run next time by. Perinin, thanks to that mistake, was 2.7 seconds off of Roke as a result of that, and has got Joseph Willows breathing down his neck behind, as Motrin has a bit of a moment going through into the final corner there, but just able to keep it onto the track. Motrin at the moment currently, where is he? Currently in 11th place at the moment, and along with Daniel Fraser, he is another man who is also a little bit under pressure, Rob, given the contenders at Aston Martin.
Yep, indeed, but he's been on a good run of form recently, especially with that amazing performance in Malaysia. He's not gonna go down without a fight, and he still can hang on, of course. Let's keep that in mind.
Yes, indeed, and of course he's still got these two races coming up that he's got to try and keep his Aston Martin seat for 2022. Of course, Brazil obviously doesn't get taken into account when it comes to the this season's signups, at least. Only for next season, when you have to look at the previous 2 seasons compared to the current season. Speaking of Aston Martins, Anderson there having a big lockup going into the first corner there, as he just makes his way out of turn number 3. But obviously, it's only Bahrain and Abu Dhabi really that they've got to try and prove that they're worthy of still being on the top class grid in 2022. Same goes for Daniel Fraser in the Haas, of course, and of course he really needs to turn it around because he will, after what happened in Mexico. It wouldn't surprise me if Haas are thinking of other alternatives to partner alongside
I'm, I,
Archer's Cross next season.
I definitely think either Florian Vorka or Michael Mocha will get that seat. I don't think Fraser can hang on.
We will see, but only time can really tell, really, as Miklos
You'll
Gal.
note I omitted one of the contenders for the Haas seat for rather obvious reasons, given yesterday's shocking performance.
I mean, that race yesterday, it was a pretty exciting race in Formula E for anybody who didn't see it. Of course, it was a race that blew the championship wide open, really, to the point now where three drivers have a chance to win the title in the last race. Although realistically, it is between two, which is Santino Andreoli and Michael Mocho. The pair only separated by 6 points, so it should make for a very exciting finale, especially on a track where, once again, just like Dubai, shouldn't see too much chaos like we saw last season with when Formula E first went to the outer layout of Bahrain last season, and hopefully, given the racing that from what I saw last season in Formula E, should make for a very good race. At the outer layout of Bahrain in 2 weeks' time. But that's in the future. Let's focus on the present at the moment. As currently in Bahrain, we're on the long layout, and we currently have top class action around here as Evan Byrne just makes his way out onto the racetrack with around 6 and a bit minutes to go in this practice session. So with just over 6 minutes to go, one last update of the leaderboard. This is what looks like then. Roke currently still at the top with Patel, whose session has come to an end in second. Carr has just come back out onto the track, as I just spoke there, in third, with Byrne, who's only just come back out on track as well, in fourth. Galloway in fifth. De Rosa in sixth, with Anderson in seventh, followed by Quag in eighth, Perrinan in ninth, Chatfield in 10th, Motra in 11th, Willows in 12th, Garber all the way down in 13th as he's just started another lap, with Chung session over in 14th, with Lopez 15th for Dairy 16th, Sontag 17th, Kupok 18th, Fraser 19th, Wilson 20th, Gal 21st, and Griffiths in 22nd position, as Garber is again 1/10 down on his personal best in the first sector, really. So I don't know if he's just doing race runs or he's just struggling to adapt at the moment. Maybe something to keep an eye on in qualifying. You would expect him to turn up the wick when it comes to qualifying, but we'll wait and see.
There's no way he is legitimately 7/10 behind Rogue. He's definitely taking it easy for the time being.
Yeah, indeed. Probably just doing some race runs rather than quali runs, and we'll probably see him turn up the taps when we get to that qualifying session, as well as just making his way around the S's now then, as he's going to be preparing to start another lap very soon. As we now look back at Garber, who's just making his way out of Sector 2. Still a 10th down on his personal best, but still lost a couple of hundredths compared to Sector 1 there. He's got one of the Ferraris behind in the form of Chris Chatfield, who currently lies in 10th. Of course, as mentioned, Chatfield has won 3 of the last 4 races, of course, to get himself up to 5th in the Drivers' Championship, and could still beat his teammate to 4th place in the Championship. Of course, neither Ferrari can win the Championship, as mentioned now, but I did mention this, in fact, to Yuri. Had they have had this pace at the start of the season, who knows where Ferrari could have been, Rob?
Yeah, absolutely. They've taken a while, but they're finally awakened their true speed, and Ferrari genuinely looks like a championship contending car. It's just a shame that it's only now become a championship contending car. It's a little too late for them to actually contend for that championship anymore. But just imagine if they had that package at the beginning of the season. They would have been incredibly strong.
Indeed, and whether they can try and continue that into 2022 is going to be another question. I mean, they will have the same lineup, let's not forget, next season. Both Chatfield and Galloway staying at the team for another season. So both of them will be looking to basically continue where they left off, really, at the end of 2020, from 2021 on to 2022, really. Just over 3.5 minutes to go now, then, in this practice session. We just saw Griffiths make his way back out onto the track as he's currently last in this practice session. Garber now then just making his way around the left-hander, and now just coming around the turn number 3 now then, as Kupok is now making his way towards turn number 4, as Sontag is just improved, but he's just over a second behind George Roke at this stage of practice, really. and coming around the S's. I'm not going to answer that, Rob. You know I can't. So
Okay, sure.
anyway,
All
nice
right.
try. Anyway, as now
Yeah,
coming
sorry
down
about
the
that.
anyway, as coming down to the straight, Garma crosses the line. He does not improve. Still stays in 13th for the time being, as we have just over 2.5 minutes to go in this practice session. And so now coming around turn number 3 now then go as Garma still just doing some race runs in this session. Probably, as mentioned, he's probably not doing the full pace that we'll probably see him do a little bit later on in qualifying. Let's not forget when we were last here in Bahrain. I think Red Bull topped both sessions, if I'm not mistaken. So you should expect, if that's the case, Garma to unlock the full potential when we get to practice. Willows, meanwhile, who was down in 12th, has just gone up into 3rd place, meanwhile, in the McLaren. He's had a recent run of good races as Willows, although in the last race, once again, you could say he was robbed of another podium, really, given that he actually ended up with some damage, I think from the crash that Kiro caused, if I'm not mistaken, and ended up recovering to 5th, but it could have been so much more. I mean, Willows has had a very good record at Mexico. I mean, he's won there twice. I mean, he nearly won there last season, of course, when he finished in 2nd, although he didn't. Obviously, because of the fact that people were struggling to gain around at Mexico, it made it a bit harder for him to catch back up to Gal in the end, despite the fact he had fresher tyres. And then this season, probably didn't have the pace for the run, but had the pace for a podium, and it just obviously it didn't go the way he was hoping. But anyway, I think we're now going to ride on board with the drivers for the remainder of the session now then. As Franco Garma now then is going to cross the line. Next lap should be his last lap, judging by how much time there is left on the clock. Does not improve as a result. Chatfield stays where he is. As we look at Griffiths, who is up on his personal best. Can he possibly demote Gal into last place? Let's see. The Welshman making his way onto the pit straight. And across the line now then he will go. And is Griffiths going to improve? He does. He goes up to 19th. So Gal now drops down to last position, as Willows is making his way onto the pit straight now then in the McLaren, as he's now going to cross the line, and he doesn't improve, as Perinen and Quag will just have enough time to do one more flying lap, the two future teammates for 2022, as I think Roke has just gone back out there just to gain some mileage to get himself prepared for qualifying. Quag just starting his lap now then in the Alfa Romeo. And so both he and Perrin doing one more flying lap. We now look at David Kupok in the AlphaTauri, currently in 18th position. He will now cross the line very, very soon. Kupok across the line, he will go, and he doesn't improve and stays in 18th. Lopez stays where he is in 15th. He's not had the best of sessions, so both Francos down the field. Here comes Evan Byrne. Across the line he will go and stays where he is. As we look at Videri now then, across the line he will go in the Alfa Romeo, and he stays where he is at the moment. Same goes for Felix Sontag, both in 16th and 17th position. Fraser is coming across the line, so 10, and now we have 9, 8, 7, 6, and now it is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0, and the checkered flag is out. Did Gal just make it? I am not 100% sure. I think we need to go slow-mo to see if Gal made it across the line in time. And the answer
no, he's not made it.
No, he only just didn't make it. So Carr is the last one to cross the line. So Carr will be the last one to cross the line. Chatfield doesn't improve. Griffiths now then, he's making his way into the final corner. And of course got himself up into 19th position, as he will now come across the line. And he shouldn't. I don't think he's going to improve, judging from his def panel, unless he finds something in the last sector, which he does actually. He does improve, but stays in 19th position. Motrin just getting some mileage. Willows across the line. He will go in the McLaren. He's currently in 3rd place, and he's going to stay in 3rd place. Roke just getting mileage for the Red Bull, as mentioned. So Perinen doesn't improve. What about Quag? It looks like he's not on an improvement either, although he's had a pretty decent session as Quag, being up in 9th place, although it has really been the story of the season for Alfa Romeo. A very good qualifying pace, but just can't seem to convert it in the race. Doesn't improve and stays in 9th. Indeed. And Kupok is coming back into the pits. Lopez, meanwhile, is not. He's just finishing off his lap now then in the Mercedes, as he now makes his way across the line. Across the line now, then he will go. And he does not improve. Byrne now then across the line. He goes in the Renault. He's currently in 5th position. He will now cross the line and doesn't improve either. As Videri now then makes his way onto the pit straight. and he doesn't improve and stays where he is. Fraser's coming back in. Now we've got Carr, who's the last one, of course, to cross the line as he finds himself in 4th in this session. Carr just comes out of the final turn and onto the pit straight now then. He will go as Amar Carr is going to cross the line now then, and I'm not expecting him to improve, and he doesn't, and that is practice done with Roke top, Patel second, and Willows in 3rd. I don't think there was really much to tell from that practice session, Rob.
It was explosive a little bit.
It was explosive for the two Lamborghini drivers, especially given that both of them blew up. But anyway, guys, that has been it for this practice session. We're going to be back very soon for the qualifying session, so we'll have a fresh stream going very, very soon. But in the meantime, I've been JW97, he's been Rob, and we'll see you in just a little bit for the qualifying session. See you in a bit.
See you.